Hello everyone, this is an awesome picture. The concept is so cool. White Widow symbiote. But with art, and anything we like really, maybe there's something it lacks or tries to do, but it just isn't working. So occasionally, I'm going to take a picture I love and see where I can add or make adjustments, and walk you through these tips and techniques so you can use them to improve your own work. There are two main issues. One, anatomy and structure, which are linked. Two, technique and process. Anatomy and structure is all about what's underneath. It is the skeleton of your piece. If you lose it at any point in your process, your piece will look disjointed, broken. To start, I used a bit of a restoration filter to bring some detail in. It adds some artifacts in the hair, but you'll see how I use this as a sketch layer to begin my painting. Let's talk anatomy. Because of her position, the deltoid, shoulder muscle, is curving forwards and down. So we're seeing a bit of the top, but the trapezius, back here, we're seeing way too much of. Even if she were muscular, the trapezius is too large. Not just for this body type, but for anyone. And from a top-down view, we still should see less. Additionally, there is some inconsistency with the visible anatomy on her body too. She is tensing her right arm and shoulder, so we can see not just muscle, but spindly fibers of the muscle itself. This happens when you grip something really hard. But on our left arm, stomach, and legs, we don't see any anatomy. Let's fix this by doing a structure that has muscle groups. This will help me see where I need to add shading and tones later on. The brachial muscle is right next to the bicep. The brachioradialis comes down and curves around the forearm. You can see where it flows and almost seems to connect to the brachial muscle. Here, there's also some detail where the original artist added extensors. I'll define that a bit more. When we're talking about anatomy for artists, really, it's just everything that we see on the surface of the skin. Not just muscle, but bone too. On the left arm, we can't see any anatomy. One thing that is consistent about superheroes in general is the original outfits were intended to appear skin tight. We're supposed to see the musculature. True, the arm is in shadow, but there are no truly dark shadows in this image at all. Let's assume that somewhere back here, we can see a bit of the triceps elongate. It extends and connects somewhere in the armpit. With all of this labeled, let's stylize the structure and anatomy. The old masters never used realistic anatomy. That's why they look so bulky, chunky. I don't know how to describe it. But there is an organic flow to the muscles and form that is used for an exaggerated effect. So we're going to do the same. We're going to look at the form and see how we can make these curves flow and look a little bit more interesting. Lastly, let's take care of the chest. This is the part that is the most problematic for me. There are two competing ideas here. The left breast is being affected by gravity, which is natural. Breasts fall and move away from the body. This happens when there is no support, like a bra. However, the right breast seems to be moving and twisting with the torso, which makes sense if she has a bra. So, one breast is being affected by gravity and the other isn't? Since superhero drawings were intended to show anatomy, let's assume there's no support underneath. Plus, the falling of the left breast indicates movement, which I think makes this composition a bit more interesting. Let's do some torso anatomy. Because we can't see much, I won't go into detail. First, I'll define the pectorals, and then I'll define the breast shape itself. See? Somehow there's stomach definition, and yet it disappears on the obliques. I'm not sure how there is and isn't stomach anatomy when she is tensing so much. With all the pieces in place, let's begin painting. One more thing. We need to understand process. The artist made choices about the brushes he used. He chose to use something similar to a wash, which is where you use a paintbrush with pigment and a lot of water on it. That created a sort of splashy quality to his strokes. The problem with that here is that there are messy bits of texture in random areas that look scratchy and webby. Yes, that can be a totally deliberate choice, but there has to be logic. When you make choices in your work, even if it's for style, you want to do so in a way that doesn't distract or make things confusing. Notice the suit. What kind of texture is it? Is it scratchy and webby? If yes, why isn't there more of it all over? Well, maybe you wanted to highlight the body and the form, but it's also shiny in parts. How is it both textured and scratchy? You can't have it both ways. Or can you? We'll sort that out later. for right now, I'm going to choose mainly the areas of anatomy I want to focus on. I forgot the chest, didn't I? Okay. See? Now they're both oriented in the same direction. Make sense? However, there's some more hugging happening with the fabric, whatever it is, against the skin. So let's pull back the shape towards her body just a bit. I'm trying to understand how the artist originally intended on having this body move, and just trying to imitate it as best as possible. With the breasts move, we can create some cool oblique detail. Let's paint. I'm just going to go over anatomy on the layer above and add midtones. While painting this, I realized the trapezius is still too high. But what are you going to do? It's still baked into the original at this point. I'll probably have to go more in depth on another painting. There is a softness to the overall painting that, when I'm adding this anatomical detail, I'm trying to preserve even in my shading. I'll go over painting digitally in volume, which is brightness or darkness, another time. It's clear that there's a direction of light coming from the top right half of her body. So I'm going to make bold choices consistent with that. Brighter, lighter shapes, and darker black shapes in the opposite direction. In order to make the lighting consistent, I'm going to start going over larger areas with a larger brush. This is a technique about edges. You notice it's appearing to pop forward. The breast is moving forward in space, and the arm is still moving backwards. A hard edge will create the illusion of depth. I'm going to touch up some of these gold parts. I'll define areas where it lost edges, and make it appear as if it's popping out of the outfit. A hard edge can be created by using a darker or brighter tone. And even if it's one gray tone next to another similar tone, a sharp edge will still read as being closer or farther away. To define these edges, I'll use the clone stamp. I really like the texture here, because it seems like there's some kind of stretching. That's something I can use when deciding what kind of fabric I want it to be. But for right now, it's getting in the way of my detail, so I'm going to paint over it. Just a hint of shadow to differentiate it from the tone of the leg in order to separate the foreground from background. I'll create a hard edge on the side it's supposed to be in front of, and a soft edge on the muscle. The spider insignia. I like the idea of a shadow underneath, but the problem is that we have a darker tone on top, which also reads as a kind of shadow. Unless it's embedded into the skin, we need to decide if the direction of light is coming from the top or not. And while it can be embedded into the skin, to simplify this piece, I'm going to make it on the surface of the outfit. That means no shadow on top. I'll use a hard edge, again, on the top. I'm going to even out the tones of the shoulder, because they were a bit even up here. It has the highlight that I want, but it needs more depth. Notice how I begin with a large brush just outside of the detail. I'm using the brush size and angle to simulate the direction of the light, or the light source. Oops, wrong layer. Let's solve this. We want the detail, but we won't want to have to repeat all the work. Lasso the area, shortcut L, Command Shift C, and the Command Shift V. This makes sure that you have all the detail you want saved to the clipboard. Command Z all the way back before you made any strokes, and then Command Shift V. Now it's all back, but on the layer above. Just remember to erase the bits you don't want. That's going to mess me up later on, but I'll deal with it. Okay, there's a lot more cleaning up that I can do, but I'll pause right now. This is just my upper body torso edit. I'll go over the face and lower body in separate videos. I really like sharing thought process and techniques that I've learned, so if there's anything that you like or want to see edited, it doesn't have to be a bad picture. I love working on great pictures. It makes me feel like a collaborator. So send me any pictures, covers, illustrations, and I'll take a look at it. See you later.